All right, what if I told you that being polite, that thing we're all taught to do, could be quietly wrecking at your business? It sounds totally backward, I know. But today we're going to dig into this really interesting idea where good manners can lead to some seriously bad data and, well, even worse decisions. Okay, let's get into it.
So let me ask you something straight up. Is your team too polite? Just think about it for a second. The last time you asked for feedback, what did you get? Real, honest, maybe even tough to hear insights? Or was it just a room full of agreeable nods and kind of vague praise? The answer to that question might be way more important than you realize.
Yeah, there's actually a name for this whole thing. It's called courtesy bias, and it's basically this. We're all wired to give answers that are, well, socially acceptable, right? We want to please the person asking the question, or at the very least, not cause any trouble. We just want to be agreeable and fit in. The problem is, in a business setting, that desire for everyone to just get along can create this massive blind spot. And listen, this isn't just some small theoretical problem. It has real, actual costs. When being polite starts to warp the truth, the data you're using to make huge decisions, it becomes completely unreliable. So the big question is, where is this sneaky bias hiding in your organization right now? Honestly, it's pretty much everywhere. It's hiding in plain sight, right there in your employee surveys. Because, who really wants to be the one to slam their manager's pet project? It's definitely in your customer feedback forms, especially when someone has to say something negative to your face. And oh yeah, it's for sure in those focus groups and big stakeholder meetings where everybody just kind of wants to agree and get out of there, completely silencing any real honest opinions. Okay, let me give you a real-world example so you can see what I mean. There was this company, right? They sent out a pretty standard satisfaction survey to check in on their internal workflows. And the results? They came back glowing, overwhelmingly positive. Looked like everything was running like a well-oiled machine. But that wasn't really the whole story. Whoa. Okay, just look at the difference here. It's wild. That first bar shows that when they asked people directly with names attached, a whopping 90% of employees said they were satisfied. But then, look what happens when you let them give anonymous feedback. That number absolutely tanks, all the way down to 30%. That is a massive 60-point gap between what people say to be polite and what they actually think. That's the politeness paradox right there. And this, right here, is where it gets dangerous. That polite but totally wrong data was masking some major frustration with old, clunky systems. So what happened? Well, the upgrades that they desperately needed got put on the back burner, which cost the company a ton of time and money. Think about that. The simple desire to be nice was literally holding the company back.
So yeah, the consequences are very real. You get this false sense of confidence in processes that are actually broken. You start throwing money and people's time at all the wrong things. You're completely blind to the warning signs of bigger problems coming down the road. And maybe worst of all, you miss out on the chance to actually improve.
All right, so we get it. It's a problem, a big one. So the next question is, what do we do about it? How do we start spotting these polite lies? How do you learn to see past that nice, shiny surface to what's really going on? Okay, let's make this super practical for you. How can you figure out if courtesy bias is messing with your data? The good news is there are a few telltale signs you can start looking for. One of the best ways to do this is to just compare the different kinds of feedback you're getting. So on one hand, you have the non-anonymous stuff. This is where you see the courtesy bias. It's usually super positive, kind of vague. You get a lot of, oh, it's fine, or yeah, it's pretty good. But then you look at the anonymous feedback. That's where you find the gold. It's specific, it's more balanced, and it points out the real nitty-gritty problems that actually need to be solved. Okay, so spotting the bias is a huge first step, but actually fixing it, that takes a whole new game plan. So let's talk about how we go from just knowing the problem exists to actively solving it. We're going to lay out a practical guide to getting that raw, honest, unfiltered feedback you really need. Here are 4 things you can start doing, like today. First, and this is huge, you've got to create safe channels. Anonymous feedback tools are your best friend here. They take away that fear of saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. Number 2, watch how you ask questions. Don't ask leading questions like, isn't this new feature great? Because that just begs for a yes. Instead, ask something neutral, like, what are your thoughts on the new feature? See the difference? Third, you have to flat out ask for honest criticism. Make it clear that you actually want the tough feedback, that it's valued, and that it's what helps everyone get better. And finally, number 4, don't just rely on one source of information. Combine that survey data with objective stuff like actual performance numbers. That's how you get the real, complete picture. At the end of the day, all these tips, they're not just about collecting better data. They're about building a completely different kind of culture. A culture where the truth, the real truth, is way more valuable than just having everyone smile and nod. And if you remember one thing from this, let it be this: politeness should not dictate your decisions. I mean, it's a great social skill for sure, but it has no business being in the driver's seat when you're making important strategic calls. So, why does this matter so much? Because the whole point is to make smart, informed decisions. And you just can't do that unless your data reflects reality, the good, the bad, all of it, not just what people think you want to hear. And that brings me to my last question for you. One I really want you to think about. When you go back to your work, your team, what polite fiction is shaping your decisions right now? Seriously, think about it, because finding the answer to that question, well, that could be the key to your next big breakthrough.